Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Conversations with Win Salah. I'm sure you guys have missed me and my guests. It's been a while. I've been trying to do things behind the scene to get the ball rolling. Many things have happened, since I last spoke with you all. Uh, I've been trying to improve the quality of, you know, the content that we produce from my end. I also have other podcasts that I run. So, and I would say that takes more of my time, unfortunately, with my 9 to 5 job. Regardless, I still want to continue this. I have had a lot of feedback from friends and family and people across the world who have listened to past episodes, and some of them are learned about how they can go into tech, and some people who are already in tech also learned how to, I would say, navigate and switch over to other parts of tech. So it's been very comforting and encouraging to want to do this. Also, I've heard a lot of there's this talk I heard that podcasts don't last more than, I would say, is it 1 season and a half. So we've tried. Well, today I'm not riding alone. I have someone special. We've been trying to do this for, I would say, 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Right from when I had the idea to do this podcast, and I've been trying to push her back. It's my fault. Blame me. But finally, we were able to reconcile, and I would say compare calendar, and I've been able to bring her on. Her name is Caroline.
Hello,
Welcome,
sir.
Caroline.
Thank you, thank you. Happy to be here, finally.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
So, how do you pronounce your name?
Caroline. Caroline is
Caroline.
correct. Yeah.
But why do people call you Caroline? Is it Caroline? Some people call you Caroline.
Caroline, because I'm francophone. So
Oh,
yeah,
on francophone.
yes.
Bonjour. Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Bonsoir.
Oh, is it bonsoir? Okay,
We're in
it's
the
afternoon.
evening.
Evening, okay,
Yeah.
bonsoir. Bonsoir. I learned French in secondary school, quote unquote, high school, in uh, middle school, and actually from elementary, middle
Mm.
school, high school. And I can tell you, I don't know a lick of French.
I think
I guess
yeah.
it was way they taught us.
Yeah. No, I think just like any other language, if you don't practice, honestly, it's not gonna stick.
Yeah, it's not gonna stick. I learned French, then I was bored. I decided to learn German. 2012, I
Oh.
remember vividly. Yes,
Mm.
I was very good at speaking German, but now I don't know anything. I
Mm.
don't know anything. And as you said, I didn't have people around me to speak with. So, but we
German
are here.
sounds complicated. That's a very
Um,
yeah, that's a very
if
interesting
if
language to try.
I mean, if you speak French, you're able to pick German language quickly. It's just
Really?
difficult for, yeah, it's difficult for English speakers to pick up German language because we don't have
Yeah.
gender.
I I've actually seen that it's harder for anglophone to learn French, but it's easier for French people francophone to learn English. Like I've
Yeah.
seen some of my friends growing up, they spoke English, and then French was they were really struggling. But then if you grew up speaking French, it was easier to learn English.
Mm,
Yeah.
it's nice. So, can you tell us who you are? The way we do it on this podcast, we try to start from the scratch, from not necessarily how you were born. Maybe you cried or you laughed. Don't let us go that far. But
Yeah.
as far back as you can, let us know how you've been, maybe to get to this point in your career. First, I think you start from your full name. I cannot pronounce your last name. I don't want to butcher it. So
It's
let's start from there.
okay. Yeah, my last name is Umukobwa.
You
Um,
see, you see, I will have pronounced it wrong. I'll have pronounced it
really?
wrongly. Yes.
What would you have said?
Let me go and check again. I think I actually practiced.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, I'll have pronounced it Umukobwa.
Umukobwa. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, fair. I think the BW is something unique in Rwanda. It sounds like a
Uh,
BG versus BW, but yeah, yeah. So
because your last name sounds it spells like an Igbo name, and
I've
that's how they would have
heard,
pronounced it.
yeah,
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
people have told me that it sounds like Igbo. No, I am from Rwanda. I was born and raised in Kigali, to be specific. I come from a family of four, my parents and my sister. And growing up, my parents, they're educated. My mom is a civil engineer. My dad is, he comes from a tech background. So they believed, in education, specifically STEM. So when even in high school, I did physics, chemistry, and math. So when I went to college, which was I moved to Seattle from Kigali to Seattle in 2014. When I moved to go to college, I did a bachelor's in civil engineering. So that's kind of like my educational background. And when I when I graduated, I started as a civil engineer in consulting, and I wasn't really passionate about it because it was a lot of sitting down and designing, a lot of time spent just by myself. So I switched. I went to work for a local government agency as a project manager, and as a PM, like it was still within the construction industry. I worked on a lot of projects with contractors, engineers, both in tech and non-tech. And when I say technical, I'm not talking about like computer science. I'm talking about like engineers and people who are not engineers. So it was definitely a nice switch for me at the time because I was very passionate about planning, passionate about working with people. So it got me out of like that environment where I have to sit and stay on a computer working by myself and more on collaborating with people and just getting things done. And fast forward, an opportunity presented itself, and I switched industries. I went into tech, and I joined a tech company as a technical program manager. And I think that that switch was easy because when you have project management experience, those skills are transferable regardless of the industry. And and I had also taken like my PMP certification. That one was more so I can sort of advance in my career at the local government agency because it's kind of like if you want to get promoted at a time, you needed to have that certification. But just taking it, I guess it added value to my resume. So then I
Mm.
transitioned into tech. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years in as a technical PM. Yeah.
I think I like the part where you kind of explained what you meant by tech. Those who are in engineering, quote unquote, and those who are not in engineering. I think it's part of my pet peeve that when people talk about tech, they don't think about engineering as a whole. They just think it has to be software engineering
Yeah.
or those in that line. Like it's broad, it's broader than all
Yeah.
that because if particular aspect tech, you can also talk about say facility managers who are
Hmm.
engineers, people who manage maybe cloud spaces, cloud computing spaces, warehouses and on-site, on-premises and all that. So
Right. So
that's
yeah,
very cool.
we can make it basically just say technical. Some people are technical, some people are not. Yeah.
Yeah, quote unquote. Uh, I think you are the first. I need to go and check my list again. I think you stand at a very unique position of having parents who are say closely related to what you studied and how you're working currently. I don't
Hmm.
think I've had anyone be whose parents are engineers. I'm not sure. I'll have to go and check my list again. And you being a woman from Africa, that's something that is very, I would say, very commendable.
Mm.
So, how has it been for you in terms of having parents who are in the technical part of life?
I think for me, it's so funny because whatever I've done, I've always related to one or the other. Like I told you, the first part of my career, I was in civil engineering, so I related to everything my mom does or used to do because they're both retired now. Um, so it was, and I feel like it was great because um all the projects that I grew up seeing that she used to do, it was making sense now that I was doing it. And me transitioning to tech, my mom was not very supportive at the time. She was like, "How can you leave civil engineering? You're gonna regret it, all these things." But then my dad was like, "Uh-huh, that's I know you're going to like it was
I knew your future
I
before you were born. I knew
exactly.
you.
My dad was very supportive when I told him the company I'm going to work for. He's like, that is the best company you can ever work for. Like, he understood it, and my mom just did not get it. And I remember, we're in a group chat, and my sister said, "Listen, at this point, just listen to your heart. Don't even listen to them." But I'll tell you today, my mom is the one person that would tell me, "Please don't leave your job. It's nice." She sees how much impact it's had on my life, how, like I've just, a lot of change, a lot of opportunities have presented itself. So I think personally, it's definitely been nice to be able to um, do something that one or the other parent can relate to, and we can talk about it if that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
And they can have
I think.
opinions. Yeah.
I also think this whole thing stems from the fact that it's just different. I would say circle of life. There was a time where everything was industrialization, and we needed
Mm-hmm.
civil engineers. There was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of constructions going on. But right now, the building blocks are just people sitting in front of computers and
Mm-hmm.
designing stuff,
Yeah.
which is just nice. I mean, you grew up having good support for your my homework and assignments. I'm really jealous.
I did. I remember definitely growing up. Oh my God, my mom, she was the type of person that would literally keep books from her school and she would use them to teach me math, to teach me, help me with my homework. Even my dad, I remember all the small skills I started learning on my computer. My dad, like when I was like not even 10 years old, he would sit me down on a computer and teach me graphic design, teach me how to type really quickly, all these
Wow.
different things. Yeah, I feel like it's a privilege that, growing up you don't really realize it, and um you see it when you grow up. Basically, like, I'm so grateful that I had that support system, because let's be honest, not every young girl in Africa is always supported by their parents, especially if their parents did not, were not educated, because a lot of the time they may not necessarily always understand the value, right? Like what they see as value may not be exactly what she sees as a value. So to have parents that truly understand the value and support you is a privilege and an opportunity that, if you have it, definitely be grateful for it.
hmm so let me ask a personal question.
Mhm.
So in school, were you really good at math?
I was very good. I did I my minor in college was also math.
No, 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 no. I'm not talking about college. Talk
Mm.
about like your what do you call it, secondary school, or what do you call it
In
back home?
secondary school?
Yeah, you call
Yeah.
it secondary school, right?
Yeah, secondary school, yeah.
So were you one of the top math students in secondary school? If not, we'll fight.
I was, and I was always among the first three all the time, anyways, in class.
Yes, because
Mhm.
you are privileged. Like
Yeah.
so let me tell you this part of my life. When I was in secondary school, it was very, very competitive. I had like a large class. In my class, my first year were like 200 and something in class. So when I say class, I don't mean, in the US when they say class, they
Yeah.
mean the whole ham.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about it's A B C, so GS1 A B C D E F G. I
Okay.
think G, yes. And I was in D. D alone, we were over 100, like I think
Mm,
200 plus. Then your whole set were almost like maybe like 500 or something like that.
mm,
When I graduated, the whole arm was like 240 something. Per class, we're almost 65, 55 each class. That's A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever.
mm.
So it was always competitive. It was always very competitive.
Yeah.
And I was always jealous of the kids whose who had elder siblings that would teach them
Mm-hmm.
stuff, teach them. I had a guy, one of the best
Mm.
math students in my set. He has a elder sibling that will come to school and teach him mathematics, and I'll
Yeah.
be like, I wish I had something like this. So you have to learn things ourselves, you know. So people like you, that you have parents that, obviously, if you're an engineer,
Yeah.
by default you should know, you should be good at math. And
Yeah, and also my sister, she did biology and chemistry, and so it was really. And I told you I did physics and chemistry and math in a secondary school, so I feel like that also added, like when it came to like, and she was really good at biology and chemistry, so she would teach me. So I think, and this is something that, you know, when you're surrounded, not even just my family in general, when you're surrounded by people who are doing what you're doing, or at least understand what you're doing, it elevates the quality of whatever you're doing just in real life in general, right? That's why they
mhm,
always say, you know, show me who's around you and I'll tell you the type of person you are, because really the people around you, they kind of shape, you know, who you become, if that makes sense.
so let's say going to let's use that to go into my next question.
Mm-hmm.
How easy has it been transitioning? I actually want to ask another question with that, but
Mm-hmm.
just let's start with that. How easy has it been for you to transition to this part of life you are right now?
So when you say this part of life, like transitioning into tech from
Yes, yes.
civil,
Civil
um,
engineering.
so I think I would say it was the when I transitioned, and the company I went to work for, it's a company where it doesn't matter what background you are, it's a great company for anybody to transition to, right? There's room for everybody, right? It's a company that um, 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 celebrates diversity and inclusion. And when I say diversity and inclusion, I'm not just talking about you're a woman or you're black. I'm talking about your non-tech, right? Any
Mm,
technical background you come from. So there's always like that environment where, you know, they make it easy for you to learn some of the stuff on the job. As long as you're bringing in some of these PM skills, for me, it was easy to learn all these other technical stuff, right?
mm,
And when I say it was easy, it doesn't necessarily mean like it was actually easy to learn. It was more like I was in a supportive environment, and they let me have, you know, make impact the way I see it. But I also I like to give this example. I remember my first days. Um, you know, I was the team I joined at the time was insights and analytics, so we used to work with data a lot, and somebody would talk about data pipelines, and I'm like, what the heck is that? And I remember somebody even messaged me, they're like, hey, do you have the UI to this? I was like, what is that? I would always be I'm telling you, like, the moment you enter tech industry, the language just sounds so different from anything else you've ever dealt with. And a lot of people that are in STEM, or, you know, have done engineering, you know, people think we understand tech. No, it's not the same. It's really not the same. Um, so I guess I think personally, it's always a learning experience. Even today, like I told you, I've been in the tech industry for 4 years now. Even today, I'm always learning stuff like security, privacy. These are all things that I'm always learning. What I try to do is I try to create relationships at work. And those relationships, I leverage them to set up time to like help me understand if I don't understand something, especially if we have to deliver, like, you know, if we have a deliverable soon, I sit down and I try to work it out with somebody. And yeah, so it's really making sure you're in the right environment that helps you with your learning, and then
mm.
creating the proper relationships. um
I just have so many questions for you, man.
sure, go ahead.
Um, um, so I mean, just to contribute to what you said about the terminologies, I can assure you, every company has their terminologies. So when you join a new company, as a new hire, trust me, it takes a while to catch up with the lingo.
Hmm.
Sometimes when they say some things, I've been in tech for how many years now, and sometimes when some of my colleagues say something, and I'm like, "Can you explain what you just what you just said?" That because I've never heard that before, or I just go on Google and just make a quick search to see what they are saying. Um, so that's an interesting point. So my question is, how how were you able to pass the interview? Because a lot of people kind of struggle with interviewing. I don't want you to go too much in depth into it, but if you can give us a brief overview of how you did it, because you were not that probably is your first tech interview, and that's huge for you to pass your first tech interview and get the job.
Yeah.
Um, can you just, because you're coming from a non-tech background into a tech background, and how were you able to pass that comfortably? I mean, not necessarily
Yeah.
comfortably, because I don't think anybody passes an interview comfortably. If you pass an
Right.
interview comfortably, they're not picking you. That's what I know.
Right. No, that's a good question. So at the time, actually, I was interviewing with a couple of other companies, just as large. So, by the time I interviewed with, my current company, I had already interviewed with, like three other companies, and so I was getting familiar with like how.
Just three? Three?
Other
Three.
I
Wow.
mean,
Hey.
it's not everything. It's not everything that you always pass that hiring manager interview, right? Because there's the hiring
Yeah,
manager
that's true.
interview,
That's true.
and
You're
then
right.
there
You're
is the
right.
actual on-site interviews, which happen
You're
to be like
right.
five of them. So some of
Okay,
them
okay,
I just
okay.
never made it past the hiring interviews.
Okay, okay,
But I'm saying
okay.
like the ones I was able to get to go through
Oh, the
the
way.
five.
Okay, okay,
There
okay.
weren't that many, but at least I got that experience. But I also want to say, I don't remember exactly the link to the website, but there is a website where you can actually go find mock interviewers that have worked at large companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and they, you set up an interview, a mock interview, and depending on basically what you want, and then they'll meet with you and they'll practice with you, right? I need
Oh,
to remember the website, so I leverage that a lot,
so
because that,
live people talk to you live, like,
yeah, so you set
and
up.
it's free.
Was it free? I don't remember actually. It's been a while.
Mm. Okay, okay.
But I just remember that it was very helpful. Another thing though, a lot of these companies too, like the moment you start working with a recruiter, they actually guide you, right? They
Mm,
guide you, they give you a preview of like not necessarily the exact questions, but like what you need to prepare for, right?
mm,
um some they told you, okay, prepare for the star method, right? Prepare for, all these different things, so that, like, maybe prepare a set of examples of projects you've done in the past, and or products you've built, so you can you can talk about, all these different type of stuff, and then to prepare for how you would handle a certain situation. So they walk you through um, all of that. And I also leveraged, I had a book, I think I still have it actually on my phone, um, how to prepare for product management interviews. So that book also has so many example interview questions and how to prepare for such interviews. So I did a lot of preparation. I remember it was definitely months of preparation. Um, so I would say to go through those. By the time I interviewed with my company, I had already had so much practice interviewing, either mock interviews or with other companies, um and just, getting feedback as well from my friends, because I also,
mm.
would just tell them, listen, interview me, I'm gonna answer, and then give me feedback. So
That's good. That's good. I think I'll come back to that interview part, because I have some, I would say, reservations on the styles and techniques of interviews nowadays. But let's move this along. As a technical program manager, how do you contribute to, I would say, the big picture of tech? Not necessarily for your company, but it's possible. I mean, it's going to be difficult to not talk about how you contribute for your company, but in tech, um, great picture. For example, I'm an SRE. site reliability engineer. I support operations and how tech products are managed and function. So, how do you contribute as a whole to the tech industry?
Um, that's a really good question, actually. I
All my
pers-
questions are good. Trust me, all my questions are good.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question because it is true when I entered the tech industry, and I started like just learning different things and um I don't know, just being exposed, if that makes sense. I personally started getting into social impact work. So I started also a passion project, and I leveraged some of my network within the tech industry. And so my friends and I eventually built a product, that young Africans can leverage to find opportunities globally. And I feel like the reason I even thought about that is because of the exposure I really had within the tech industry. And I realized that, oh my God, it's actually possible. We can do this basically. We can build something and people can leverage it. So I think not just talking about the tech industry in general. I've always been the type of person that every time I'm exposed to opportunities and resources, I always think about how can I actually leverage this to do social impact type of work. That's something I've always been passionate about. How can I elevate other people, especially back home? Um, so yeah, without getting into too many details, I think personally, I just leverage the network, the resources I have access to drive social impact work on a continent.
Okay. Um, Speaking of what you do, can you, in very few words, tell us what a technical program manager is
So in my own, uh-huh.
and what you do day to day? Yeah,
Sorry, what was the last part?
and what you do day to day, how your day
What
to
I
day
do day
goes.
to day. The way I would define a technical program manager, I feel like it's that one person that's able to translate what the business needs to engineering so that we can bring it to life, right? Because a business stakeholder might want something or a client might want something, but it's the job of a technical program manager to translate that into very specific specifications that engineering can actually build, um, and that entails talking to the clients or talking to the stakeholder, understanding the requirements, going to find if you need data, going to find where you can find this data, basically delivering all the information and all the resources that engineering needs to build that, and then getting feedback from the business stakeholder or the client that that's exactly what they want. So we basically bring to life whatever the business needs. Um, and so and the technical PM always carries both. They don't always have to be as technical as devs, but they carry some sort of technical skills as well as business skills, right? So being in the middle, you also have to be really great at, working with people, aligning with everybody, um, having those soft skills that are necessary to be able just to work with everybody and bring something to life. And what I do day to day is a lot of, I would say a lot of project management work, um, you know, working with engineers on the day to day, checking status of where things are, communicating back to to the client or the business stakeholder the status of the project, making sure you're getting clarity, attending meetings. I think I'm probably in more meetings than anybody would want to be, but that helps, right? You want to make sure you're, you know, everybody is aligned. Um, and strategy. I write a lot of strategy because if let's say I'm running a program, I have to be able to think. how that program, basically, I have to be able to think and plan a strategy that's going to align with the overall business organization. Like, you know, if we have, if our CVP has a goal of attaining, you know, X and Y and Z goals, how is my program going to contribute to that? Right. So I have to put down a strategy. So yeah, it's a lot of tactical work and strategy work.
Mhm. Um, so controversial question. Does you being a woman come into for and affect the way you carry out your duties? Woman in tech.
Yeah. I guess, are you saying does it help or is it a challenge?
Both. I mean,
Both.
is it positive or is it negative? Does it bring too much attention on you? Does it put you in the background or foreground? Or that jazz.
So I've definitely I sometimes I try not to look at situations and interpret it as this is because I'm a woman. Um, I think the one thing I've done pretty well is standing on business.
Hmm.
And that may be a lot of the times, even like in my previous job as within the local government, um, when you work on a lot of construction projects, you find that you work with a lot of men, right? They're most of the ones that are on the field. I think personally is really just standing on business. I know, I know what what I need. But also I know I need these people as well. So kind of also building those relationships because you need these people to be able to attain, um, your goal or get to, deliver. So yes, I've definitely had experiences where I know that probably if I was a much older person and a man, maybe somebody wouldn't um, behave a certain way. And the one thing about me, I've definitely always, it's good to be diplomatic sometimes, but also I've always like expressed my opinion. And one of my friends told me it'll get me in trouble. But I think if you at work in life, if someone treats you a certain way and you don't address it, I think they'll continue to treat you that way. So I
Hmm.
think you very 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 early on at work, you have to stand on business and also let people um kind of show people how they should treat you. And if somebody crosses a line, you have to make sure like that that does not happen again. um I wish I could give you specific examples. It's kind of hard without getting into details, but there are definitely certain demographics because of cultural differences that tend to show edges, and like you're much younger, or you can see it, but I think if you put them in their place, that's not going to happen again.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I think I try to just generally, you know address stuff, and if I don't address it, at least I always leverage my manager to advocate for me if something makes me really uncomfortable.
Hmm. Okay. Um. Thank you for the answer, because I know that question is very difficult to answer without getting into trouble or putting a spotlight on you. Um. So, what are the tools that you use for your day-to-day activities? I know you guys use Power BI. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
what are the general tools that you guys use?
So, I mean, both at work and side projects, I use different tools based on what I'm doing. As a PM, I do a lot of product management work as well. So sometimes I use Figma to design some wireframes, or just whatever we're building, how I envision it to look like. So that's another skill that as a PM you have to learn, just some basic UI design. So I use Figma. And then for communications, Microsoft Teams or Slack, depending on, again, who I'm working with or which project I'm working on. And then for planning, my company has a lot of internal tools for planning, but for any side projects I do, I leverage Trello. Trello is really good with being able to track features and where they are. Um, what else do I use? Um, yeah, I mean, for the most part, those are the main PM tools that I leverage. And so again, like I talked about, I worked in insights and analytics for a little bit. So I had to learn SQL. So because I use SQL a lot, that's why we used to store a lot of our data. Microsoft Fabric, or I guess now it's Power BI. Um, Actually, I've learned. I taught myself some Tableau back in the day. So, but I haven't used it in a while. But a lot of people, prefer Tableau over Power BI. Yeah. What else? Um, those are the ones I can think of for now.
Okay. My second, to the last question, and at least on my notes, what questions? I think we had to clarify this. What questions will you ask someone you are interviewing for a technical program role? And if the person answers that question, they've shown proficiency to be able to function in that role.
Mm. Um, like I said, technical PM is also a little bit really similar to a product manager role, but high level, I think I would want to understand like a product or a program they worked on end to end, right? Like I want to understand all the phases, from start to finish, right? And in addition, I would also want to understand after that, how did they measure um, the impact, right? Because it's one thing to build something, but how do you measure the impact? What sort of metrics do you track to see that what you built is the return on investment is there, right? Um, and some of the metrics I would hope to see them talk about is: are you tracking usage? Are you tracking user satisfaction, or in this case, NPS, right? Are you tracking what are some KPIs that you're tracking? Are users coming back, right? I've built a lot of tools and a lot of reports in my work. And, there's definitely some that I've seen people use, and, others not so much, or even features. And that has always, made me want to question, basically, is it that they don't understand how to use this feature, or is it that they don't need it, right? And for anything, there's always usually a cost associated with it. So I would want to hear this PM, after everything that they have built, how have they measured the impact or the usage of that feature or that product. One other thing I would want to ask them would be, I would want to give them a scenario, right? And kind of see how they, like, their thought process, right? So for instance, Shaun, now, if I give you tell me how you would you know um build product X, right? I would want to see how your thought process in planning, how you would build that. And when I say build, I'm not talking about the technical details. I'm talking about, do you go out there to do you ask questions about assumptions, and do you talk to customers and do some market research? Do like, what are some of the assumptions, and how are you thinking about the risks, and how are you going to mitigate those risks? How are you going to make sure, like, the product comes to life and it gets used? And basically just understanding how your thought process, how you'd plan that. Those are the main two that I would want to ask if someone wanted to be a tech PM or a product manager. Other than that, every other thing is more about just like soft skills. How do they, prioritize when they have conflicting priorities? Something like that. I would definitely want to hear them talk about measuring impact and aligning with, leadership and stakeholders. And then I would also want to understand how do they deal with um people that are hard to deal with, like you know how- those
Conflicts.
yeah,
Mm,
those customers that are just not easy to deal with,
mm,
right?
mm,
Just
mm,
some of those soft skills, because a lot of the PM work requires a lot more soft skills than technical. So
mm.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for answering this question elaborately. I remember I said I was going to come back to my question in terms of interviewing. You made mention of like going into a particular group, using a particular website, reading certain books. I just have my reservations with the interviewing style of a lot of these big corporations. It's very, it's too methodical, like it's too rigid and restrictive. Because if I'm going to interview someone right now for my type of job, the way I'm going to ask them questions are not the way I've been interviewed in the past. Because also depends on the kind of experience that you have. If you are coming in entry level, I might probably just ask you some very, like, I would say, educational questions like, what is this, what is that, how do you do this, how do you do that, you know, questions that someone that is coming from out of college and getting into an industry for the first time should know. But if you are experienced, I'm going to ask you scenario based questions. I'm going to ask you questions that, I feel that as an SRE you should know. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say, because it's too, you see people, especially for software engineers, you see them carry this very large book that, oh, you have this ash table questions, you have
Yeah.
these search questions, you have these I would say n questions, you have this efficient question. Like, it's just too, someone can cram all those
Yeah.
questions
Hmm.
and come and point in front of you. But that's what the
Yeah.
reservation I have in terms of interviewing
Uh,
skills.
you know what? I'll definitely agree with you because, remember I told you that I did interview with a couple of other companies. I
Yeah.
feel like some of the companies where um, I personally did not really enjoy the interview is when they were like just question, next question, next question, next question.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it definitely was not the best to me. I felt like they were not necessarily trying to get to know me. They were just trying to check a box. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the
Exactly.
yeah, and some of the interviews, like my current company, I remember I definitely loved those interviews because I felt like people were generally just trying to get to know me and having conversations, even like just it made it more easier for me to like have a discussion with them. Like, I was because like I said, it was 5 interviews. The moment I was going to the next interview, I was feeling a bit more relaxed and then more relaxed. By the time I finished, it was so relaxing because everybody just felt like they're trying to have a conversation with me versus just reading through questions. So I do agree with you. Like some of these companies, um, yeah, I was gonna give an example of one of the company, but we're not gonna go there. But
I know. Trust me. In fact, actually, I feel like I know
yeah.
the kind of company you're talking about, and I've interviewed
Eh,
them so many
oh
times,
my God. Yeah.
and I can feel like, when your culture and their culture don't align. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Trust me. There's a
Yeah.
reason, because a lot of stories I've heard coming out
Mm-mm.
from that company are like, yeah, I can see why. Funny
Wow.
enough, for those that don't know, I interviewed and I got a position with Caroline's company 2 years ago, but I couldn't start for some very unforeseen reasons. I was
Mm,
supposed to start, but so many things happened. I would say, even though I'm not working for them right now,
mm,
hopefully I might go back. I feel like going back, but I will see if I can, find a way back.
mm,
But the experience interviewing with Caroline's company is one of the best I've had ever.
Mm,
Like hands down. The first technical question interview I had
mm,
was one of the technical I think it runs the cloud, whatever, the facility. The question the interview I had with him was so perfect. Like that was when I
mm,
was like, yeah, this is how you're supposed to interview someone. He was asking me scenario based questions, tangible questions
mm,
that when I got there, it caught me unawares because I wasn't really used to those kind of interviewing styles.
mhm,
And the next round, which was 5 rounds, 5 sets of interviewers, as she said, from one interview to the next one, you get comfortable. I was
mm,
so comfortable that at some point she knew I knew the answer,
mm,
but the way she framed it was kind of like tricky. She was telling me, "Trust me, you know the answer. That once you answer it, you feel silly for not knowing the first time." That's how easy it was. It wasn't easy in terms of like knowledge wise. It was easy in terms of interviewing me. By the time I finished, I was so comfortable that yes, this is how you interview someone. This is how you interview, and I wish they don't change because I think it
mm,
seeps into the work culture because everybody that has worked with that
mm.
company all have good things to say about that company, which is good
Yeah,
because you want your company, you want your staff to be able to champion the cause
yeah.
on your behalf,
You want to
and
set them up for
it helps.
success, not trap
Yes,
them. Yeah.
yeah, it helps you. You know, it helps everyone. People don't when you're asking for help for other people, they don't want to fight you. My
Mm-hmm.
current company, they are very good at that too. That's the two companies I'm saying I'm really really like. I would say I've enjoyed the interviewing style is when I'm working right now and Caroline's company. Both of them, you can tell even in the culture. We company I'm working with right now. When you have an issue, if you want to ask questions, ask anybody, and it's a very flat style company. You can go to the director directly, like you have their if you know their name, you can ping them directly, they'll answer you. Nobody they might be busy, maybe it might take me 1 or 2 hours, which is normal for a senior director or
Mm,
a director. But when they answer you with respect. They don't answer you like, oh, you should know this now. How did you come to this company?
mm,
Because trust me, people have worked in that company for 20 years and they still don't know some parts
mm-hmm,
because it's so huge. Tech
mm-hmm.
is so huge that I mean, coming from outside, I'm not like, okay, let's do this. Way. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
that's
it's
true.
always evolving. Yeah.
It's always evolving. So yeah, so I really hope I wish they continue and a lot of companies emulate that style. It helps a lot. It
Yeah.
brings in the right people. It helps the right culture. Yeah. So my last question, which is my favorite question,
Mm.
is explain what you do to a 7-year-old.
How's the one? Hmm.
So a lot of, I would say 95% of people have asked this question on this podcast have
Mm.
struggled. So let's see if you're going to increase that percentage or
Oh
reduce
my God. Okay.
it.
This is not easy, but let's try, you know. So what am I assuming you're the 7-year-old?
Yeah, any 7-year-old, just if they're listening to us right now,
Okay. I see. Okay.
again,
The way I feel like I would explain my job to a 7-year-old, I would say, um, like, imagine you wanted to build, um, let's just say, give me an example of something a 7-year-old would build. Like maybe,
I'm a 7-year-old. I don't
oh,
know.
um, what would a 7-year-old want to build? Like, let me try to think. Like maybe, be a some sort of toy or
That works. That works. Yeah, that works.
yeah. So just imagine whatever a 7-year-old wants to build. The way I would explain them is they they have um the 7-year-old, you and your friends, you know, let's say you get you and your seven, oh no, sorry, your three other friends, you want to build something, right? But you need one leader to sort of guide you through how you're going to build this, and then find all the pieces that you need to put things together, and go and buy it and bring it. So imagine that person is the PM. That person is going to make your job easy, to help you put those pieces together and have the toy that you need. The way I see PMs basically is we help people and bring everything that they need together, and then give them not necessarily instructions, but just give them the requirements. So for a 7-year old, we'll tell them, hey, um, you know, we want you to build this toy, and these are all the materials. Tell me what else you need, and let me know if you have questions. I'll find you the answers. I don't know if that's very easy, Sheun. I've tried.
You tried. I mean, you find a way around it. Eventually, you go to the point. Eventually, yeah. Well, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you for finally coming to join me on this special podcast. Everyone that's listened and has been a fan of this podcast, I want to appreciate you guys. Oh, happy New Year, because it's a new
I
year,
know. Happy New
2025,
Year.
first episode 2025. And I hope to continue. I hope to do more of this year. I also hope to bring in past guests, just come and give us updates on what they've done with their
Mm,
lives in terms of tech. So it means Caroline too, you'll be back. And I also want to probably pitch two PMs together, or bring in someone who is building something and bring in a PM, or bring in a software engineer and bring in a PM, just to have a nice interaction with different people of part of tech, and see how they share the ideas and how they think and how they interact with each other. So it's possible for me to bring you back in and someone else. So
yeah.
keep your lines open. Also, people, the guest audience out there, people out there, if you have any feedback on how you want me to go about this, in terms of what you want to listen to, what questions you want answered, what kind of type of guests you want me to bring in, I'm open to suggestions. I might not, don't even this part because I don't want to discourage people. But yeah, thank you for sticking with me up to this point. I promise to bring in more guests on this show. This podcast is not going to die in Jesus' name. If you're a
Amen.
Christian, if you're a Muslim, inshallah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Whatever God you pray to, this
Uh-huh.
podcast, this is not going to die. Well, Karen, thank you once again for pulling up, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this episode. I hope you did
Yeah,
too.
I did.
Yeah.
I really did. And I've listened to, some of the previous episodes, and there's this one in particular you've had, one engineer, and they claimed PM don't really do much. And
Exactly. You
I'm
see
here.
why I want to bring the person back so you guys can face
Yeah.
each other.
I'm here to say that is absolutely false, because we do a lot of things that engineers don't want to
uh,
do. So we are the ones that take accountability on behalf of the whole team. So I trust me, we do a lot. But no, thank you. I really enjoyed this episode. Next time I'll come ready, because some of the questions were definitely harder. So
yeah, yeah, thought provoking. Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's what that's the aim of it. Just I don't want it to be so easy to answer, but
Yeah.
right.
No, but
Thank
this was
you.
fun. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, and till next time. I'll catch everyone. Bye.
All right, sounds good. Bye bye.